Hey everybody, welcome back to Tampa touring. ZombieGlide, she's off the jack. Trolley intro. I'm going to splice some, I tried recording this the other day, I'll splice some pieces into it, but bottom line is I figured there's two problems. So we talked about the Dobeck Performance tuner that was on here previously, that it basically tries to interject into the injector pulses and then reset to what it wants to do based on the pots. Those pots being idle, mixture, your transition, or your basically your power valve, or your secondaries kicking in if you think about a carburetor side. And those were set wrong. Okay, when I looked at them, it was running way rich. Right, which explains why the plugs were black. Right? It was just rich across the board. Looking at the defaults, if you've got pipes on it with no tune, stock motor, no cam, no nothing else like that, she was way too rich. So it goes based on clock position. So like your idle, your starting point is like 2.5. This thing was set to like 4.5, 430. So instead of 230, it was set to 430, which is way rich. Same thing for the accelerator side. It was way rich. So that's why those plugs were black. Now, I didn't do anything with it because when I got the bike, it was already on there. I had pulled the plugs at the point when I was working on it. You can go back and look at other videos here. The plugs looked fine, timing looked fine, all that kind of stuff. The other problem I found, and one of my viewers had suggested looking at the crank position sensor. So I had actually pulled that out now. Crank position sensor testing, it's supposed to have about 1 ohm of resistance, and if you pass a piece of metal, socket, whatever, past it, you should see some AC voltage on it, right? And I did. So that told me crank position sensor was okay. So it wasn't an issue there. I had pulled the push rod tubes and made sure that it wasn't a collapsed lifter. Everything was moving correctly, put in 6th gear, turn the back tire. It was working fine. So I said, it still seems very fuel related. So I pulled, and I'll interject that piece of video into here. I pulled the fuel pump assembly out. Right. So I had to pull the whole assembly back out. And what I did is I just pulled it up, I turned it on. I was wanting to see if there was going to be fuel coming from, the feed line. Maybe there's a hole in the feed line to, the connector here where the fuel tank connects to from the pump line to the injectors. When I did that, I turned the bike on. And with a flashlight looking in on the side, and I wanted to see fuel coming out of the back, the basically think of it as like a return line coming out of the fuel pump pressure housing, and I got a face full of fuel. That's not good. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh look, the O-rings popped out slightly out of place. That would be why. It was venting pressure. It wasn't putting enough pressure to the injectors. Alright, so like I said, it sprayed me in the face, right? I'll put up the exploded diagram here as well. But what happened is on the pressure regulator, there's an O-ring that sits into the housing. That O-ring, when I'm looking at it, that O-ring was pushed out slightly. The question is why? Why did that push out? I pulled it all apart, inspected the O-rings, everything looked fine, put it all back together, seated correctly, and it works fine, and here comes the wife. Okay, I have no idea where the hell I was now that the wife interrupted me coming home from lunch. Anyhow, so like I said, I reset up the pressure regulator in the housing. O-ring looked good. Sorry if I'm repeating myself. And it now starts, runs fine, revs fine. The concern I have is there's a reason that O-ring pushed up out of place, right? The question is why. There was no damage to the O-ring. It wasn't flat. It seemed healthy, but that doesn't mean it's not going to do it again. And if it does do it again and the pump's coming out, I'll just replace the fuel pressure regulator itself and the housing. I think the pressure regulator for this thing is like 40 bucks, something like that. So it's not that big a deal to replace, considering all the other money that I put into this piece of crap. But at least it's alive. So it starts. I don't know. It's probably going to be a liar out of me that it won't start first hit. But let's see what it does. There we go. We're live, running well, running hot. I couldn't do that before. I couldn't do that before. It would not, you give it any gas and it would stumble terribly, right? So it was fuel related in the end. It hopefully isn't going to screw itself again, but if it does, at least now I know right where to look after going through everything. So it's alive. One of these days I need to get it out. I need to get this thing over to Florida DMV to get it inspected, because like I said, it does have a salvage title, so they need to make sure that it's roadworthy, whatever the hell that means. It runs, it drives, it doesn't explode. I don't know what's involved in that. I do know they want pictures of before. They want to have the vehicle there. They need to see all the receipts, major components, whether they were new, used, whatever. So in this case, major component being gas tank. Motor was, I didn't touch the motor. I didn't pull the motor apart, anything like that. I did change the pipes. Frame is fine. There's no damage to the frame. It was all cosmetic damage at the end of the day. So feel free to go back, take a look at some of the first video. I'll maybe try and link it or something. When I brought the thing home and went through it, because it was a pile of crap. There was, it was in pretty rough shape from the accident that it had. The only question is going to be is because at Coparts, where I got it from, they didn't have any mileage for it because the battery was totally dead, so they couldn't look at the mileage and have that as part of the VIN, so it just says exempt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and run the VIN, see when the last service was on it. I think this last service was about 25,000 miles. It's got about 26 something on it now, so it wasn't that long before the accident. So if I can get that from, printout of that from Harley-Davidson, because if it was done at the dealership, they'll have record of it. Any of the dealers can pull that info. So we'll see what happens. Next time, hopefully I'll be able to get this thing out, even, just do a quick video of it, just riding it in the hood, so to speak, or maybe if we go to dinner tonight, I'll take it to dinner tonight and we'll ride it a little bit. So until next time, ride fast, take chances. See ya!